Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 883, Gary's here and we've got to catch up from the Christmas break. We'll be talking about some gadgets we got over Christmas. I'll be talking about another service that's been pulled from Smart Home that's caused a bit of controversy. We'll be talking about EVs, new gadgets for 2023, all sorts. So let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening. Happy New Year.
Good. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, our first show of 2023.
Yeah.
I still get that. I haven't been to CES for, I don't know, nearly 10 years now, or maybe it's around that, something like that. I don't know when we last went, but I still, at the beginning of January, I always get that feeling that I should be off somewhere.
Should be off to Vegas.
Yeah. It was good fun. I kind of miss it in a way, but I think it's probably not, there's not as much there stuff to see now. And I think the COVID kind of, the cost of international travel kind of shut up, so it's just not worth it now. But yeah, they were good for fun events. Still, the favourite one was the launch. Was it the Vista launch that I was there for? Yes, it would have been. Yeah, the Vista launch. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, so we had some good shows. So there is a bit of CES news which we can talk about. Not a huge amount, I think. Intel processors and things like that. I've got an update on the Rackspace story we talked about a few weeks ago, and I took another smart home provider killing features off. There's been quite a hoo-ha about that one, so we can talk about that as well. So first of all, we'll catch up on the Christmas stuff. So any gadgets, things that you got over Christmas?
Not major gadgets. I've got an RFID blocking wallet which has an RFID tag on the outside, which seems a bit of a contradiction in terms, but does seem to work. I've obviously the garden studio, which I'm in, is still in progress. One of the things I did get, and I can angle this way so you can see it, is that's my new IKEA trad-free, as in Zigbee based wire automated blinds, so that they'll be plumbed into the smart things system and working on light sensitivity and temperature and all sorts of things to try and call. But this place is amazing. I've got the lights fitted in here now, and I said last time that I was working on those the little LED lights which I had for the Christmas decoration. I mean, these lights are keeping it really warm. I was just trying to check the temperature just before we came on air. It's 22 degrees in here, and all I've had on during the day is the LED lights. It's crazy. I mean, I have to hope it stays. It works the other way in winter. It stays cool, but it's supposed to. So sounds a good thing.
Yeah, that's the key.
Other than that, I didn't get much in the. Other than that, I didn't get much in the way of tax stuff. I did get one of these oscillating multi-tools, which is very good for cutting holes. I have to say, it's going to be very useful in here to do my desk. But yeah, it's
like a drill.
It's basically it oscillates like that basically. So it goes left and right oscillating, and you just touch a blade to the end of it, so it then cuts into whatever it's cutting. So it's great for doing plunge cutting. It's a saw effectively, but it's a plunge. But it also comes with a scraper tool, a sander tool as well. So it's great. I mean, the scraper tool is brilliant for getting things like laminate off tiles off and things like that. It really works well. But the cutter is excellent for doing plunge cuts. So when you've got to do that sort of square cut in the middle of something, it's
I hate doing those. Yeah,
it's really good for that. You just have to make sure you score it first. That's the thing I found. And then true. If you're not in control, it tends to go everywhere. But the great thing, it uses the same batteries as my drill I have, so it's just a quick swap over wireless tool, rechargeable, so cordless tool, cordless tool. But yeah, it works well. But that was really the only major tech I got for Christmas. Just before Christmas, I don't know if I mentioned this, I actually won an Echo Studio.
All right, no, you didn't know.
Yeah, so that's really good. I'm gonna turn my video off because I think I'm bandwidth limited.
Yes,
see if it's any better.
Yeah. I'll say
So So yeah, well, I haven't quite got the mesh Wi-Fi work in the right place in this room yet. I've got, because basically things have been jiggled around with electric, so it's in the far corner where it should be in, this, in the near corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, there's lots of things going on. But yeah, that's
So the Echo Studio, is that a big one of the big screen ones?
No, it's the round. It's the sort of round, high quality speaker. It's a bit like, you remember the Apple did their Apple Max one?
Right,
yeah,
yes.
But it does the virtual surround thing, and it will connect to a Fire TV to give you Dolby Atmos. Although I have to say, the connection to the Fire TV is very unreliable, really unreliable. I mean, it'll work halfway through a program, and then suddenly the program starts pausing because it's losing connection to the speaker. And as they're on the same wireless connection point, you'd think they would work. But I've read quite a few people saying there's problems with mesh networks with them, and Amazon have known about this for almost 2 years and done nothing about it, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, so at the moment I've disconnected it from the Fire TV just because it's just becomes unwatchable when you when you start watching a film, and it's great, it sounds amazing, and then halfway through the film it starts doing all this stuff, and you have to literally disconnect the Echo Studio to actually get it to play the rest of the film. So it's a bit of a nightmare there. But it does sound amazing when it's actually playing. The 3D audio and it's brilliant. It's just the use case I would quite like to have, which is to replace a soundbar. It doesn't really work for, because of these dropouts.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to just try and set up a standalone Wi-Fi for it, just to see if it will work on that rather than part of the mesh, just to connect it in, or even go for an Ethernet cable to see if I could get something like that set up. But I'm not sure that's feasible with the studio, but it's certainly feasible with the Fire TV. But yeah, it's but it creates its own little Wi-Fi connection between the Fire TV and the Echo Studio as well. So you should think that would be reliable because it's doing it from one to the other, but it doesn't seem to be. So I'm just not sure if the Echo Studio can't keep up or whatever, but it's definitely some sort of issue with it. But when it works brilliantly. It sounds amazing when it works. The demo it does when it first connects up is just mind blowing for a little tiny speaker. But yeah, no, it's not quite working how I would hope. But then again, I didn't pay for it, so I'm not. I can't complain too much.
Well, I finally got my racking arrived and then set up over the Christmas break. So down there is the amplifier, and then I've got the Gen, the Korg, and then the drum machines and the keyboard right at the top, and the LED light strip with the Arduino on it is up there now. So it has got some push buttons on it that I can alter the color if I can reach. So I just programmed that in MicroPython. So you press there's 3 buttons on the Arduino on that one. So I just made it cycle through the 3, the RGB, the 255 values. So that's just knocked it down to just a blue on 255, and then the other 3, each button increments. And then when I made it so when it gets 255, it goes back to 0. So I haven't made it doing any automation, because that's one thing I've sort of struggled with, because it's not got Wi-Fi or anything on that device, so it is standalone, but it works quite well. It's connected up to an extension lead which is on a smart plug, so the whole thing is on a smart plug. So I just power the whole. In fact, I've got a routine called Studio Power Up, so that brings everything on in here, and then shuts everything down as well. So yeah, but it's actually worked quite well. It's nice and easy to build. I don't think my wife's that keen on it. She thinks looks a bit big, but it holds the keyboards in there, which is what they were meant to do. So
that's cool.
A couple of bits pieces. I did get some new studio headphones. These are Biodynamics DT 770s Pros, which is kind of studio ones. So I didn't want any noise cancelling or active bass booster or anything like that, because I just want it to hear exactly what I'm getting through from the synths and stuff. So I got some of those, and my sons actually did get me something which is quite handy, which is a digital multimeter. So the thing with so I can do capacitance, resistors, resistance, temperature. It does as well. So electrical things. That's quite interesting, because I've got one of my projects coming up is I wanted to get my hi-fi working. Stephen, this is a Denon cassette recorder, DRM 510. I think I bought this in 92 or something, maybe 91. I pulled it out of the loft, and when you press play, it doesn't push the heads up into, the motor doesn't push the heads up. So of course it doesn't play. If you move the heads up with your fingers, you can hear it playing. So obviously something not working on it. So that's a project to do at some point with the meters, because actually the service manuals are available online, so I can actually check the voltage levels of the motors and things like that. But a bit ambitious to think I can fix it, but you never know unless you try. But
it's worth a try, isn't it?
Yeah, but I find the meters great for, well, if you're trying to fix LED lights, when you're just trying to work out where the continuity is not working, or even things like batteries and things like that. So
having a motor meter is a really good idea. I've got a couple. Yeah. For different purposes.
Yeah. So those were my gadgets, but I was most happy with the shells, which on Boxing Day came up out of the way. I thought I'm going to build my shell, so quite pleased with that. There isn't really enough space for any more keyboards, but I really shouldn't be having any more anyway. I have got
for next week anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I spent quite a lot of time. I mentioned it with the mod wave. Really enjoyed using that synth. The combination of that and the software is definitely the best combination that I've come across so far, having the physical device and the virtual version of it as well. So I've nearly finished the track, so I'll stick that at the end of this week's show that you can have a listen to, which is all just done with the one synth. So I've got a few tracks to finish off, and I should be able to get some more music out in the next few weeks, hopefully. But in terms of other gadgets, I think I might have to be getting some new smart home cameras. Have you heard of the Arlo story?
I've heard of the Arlo stories, but fill me in with more details.
Yeah. So, as long-term listeners will know, I have an Arlo camera. I've got an Arlo Pro outside. It's a wireless one with a battery, so there's no cables to it. And I've got a wireless Q, which is in the conservatory. It looks out of the conservatory, so I've got the front and the rear of the house kind of covered. I've had these, I think about 4 years, something like that. I think the Arlo Pro, they stopped making that in 2018. But when you get the Arlos, and it actually says on the box in big letters, watch 7 days with 7 days free cloud recording. So the idea is, if someone comes up to the front door, triggers the motion sensor, and go on my phone, I can have a look. I've got 7 days worth of recordings on there, so I get an alert. But of course, you can do live viewing, but it's more useful to see who was at the door. You can look at the clip, and it doesn't cost you anything. But at the end of the year, Arlo started to send emails out saying end of life. I think it's called end of life features or something like that. And so what Arlo are doing is, if you've got a Gen 3 or an Arlo Pro, after the 1st of April this year, so 4 months effectively, the cloud storage will stop working. You won't get any notifications, and you don't get any firmware updates, and they say that's because they're end-of-life devices. But and also the same is for the Arlo Baby, the Arlo Pro 2, the Arlo Q, and the Arlo Q Plus. They get a later date of January 2024. But what it means effectively, the situation I just outlined, where someone comes to the door, that will no longer work. I can get a notification, but the only way to see who's there is to watch it live. I can't look back at the clip. So if I look back 10 minutes later, it's too late. That event's happened. I'll never be able to see it because it's not cloud recording them. There is a base station which has you can fit a USB drive onto it, a USB stick, but you can't view that. The only way to view stuff stored on the base station is to pull the USB drive out, put it on a PC. So that's not good if you're out and about. You want to see just who's knocked at the front door, or if there was an event during the night that you wanted to look back on, it's useless. So effectively, it's killed the functionality of that device completely. And same with the Q as well, and which are standalone devices, but there's no option to record with those at all anyway. So yeah, they killed them off. Now that they're saying it's because it's their end of life, which you can kind of understand. Devices do get end of life eventually. But what I think has upset most people is the fact that you can, all this functionality that you are going to lose, you can get if you subscribe to one of their paid subscription services.
Yeah.
Which is
means
where
technically it doesn't end the life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not end of life at all. It's full of life if you pay your monthly subscription fee.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge amount of uproar from the Arlo community about this. Talk of lawsuits and things like that, especially from the US. So we'll see what happens. But I think there's been some cases like this. Other services done something similar and then it's gone to litigation. But I don't know what will happen. I mean, I presume nothing will happen and that'll be it. I think I did read that Amazon killed off one of its cloud cameras and offered a 3-year subscription or something like that because there was a bit of a backlash. So I don't know whether that thing will change on Arlo. But really, for what I want to use the cameras for, they're useless. They're just going to be waste of time because who's going to, you don't watch it live. It's just they don't have a use case for me. So. You could have bought one of these. I think they last went on sale at the end of 2018. So you could have bought one in 2019 and effectively just got 2 years out of it. So it just shows, once again, it proves, you buy a service, you get what was on offer at that time, but it doesn't mean to say that they won't take that away.
You're always going to get that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And people, and something like cameras, you don't want to keep replacing them. You don't want to keep. I'm not.
Oh, I think you just got on mute.
That's interesting. I got muted by Teams then. I didn't do anything. So I've got security cameras here, which for this office, which they're up high up on the wall. I'm not going to climb up and change them or do anything like that. They're properly mounted. They're wired in, which is why I went for a provider which also supports OnViv, which is the universal standard for wired cameras on networks. Now, unfortunately, very, very few cameras these days support OnViv. They've all gone for proprietary cloud type alignments, which means you can't. If their cloud goes, you're stuffed like they are with Arlo, effectively. Or they can charge you as much as they like for their cloud service. Basically, they could start off at £1 a month and suddenly say next week it's going to be £200 a month. I mean, that's unlikely, but that is the sort of thing that is absolutely feasible with these services. So I think the ability to have something independent of that, and this is why I've mentioned the Blue Eyes service I use quite a lot over time. And Blue Eyes is a standalone server. It integrates with any camera which supports OnViv, and I can do it. And there's more than one way of talking to OnViv cameras. And they use RTSP streaming, so you can integrate them with other things, and there are ways of integrating most of these with Amazon as Alexa services as well. So I think that's probably the best way to go. I mean, certainly the choice I made. I mean, I've gone with Frostcam for these cameras. They do have their own cloud service, which actually works really, really well. And they tell you up front that it's going to cost you if you want to do any of these calls. They haven't given a sort of free service option. So maybe that's the way that you need to go with these things, because basically, I mean, I understand Arlo needing to get some money because they've got all these cameras out there using cloud services which are costing them an arm and a leg to run, and cloud services haven't got any cheaper. They're starting to get even more expensive. So I can sort of see where they want to recoup their money, but maybe that's what they should have said, that they can't actually continue to run it. Well, been honest about it.
Yeah, it's I mean, they were part of they were owned by Netgear, then they got spun out. So I think that Netgear are still majority owner, but they are a separate company now. The other option I was thinking is because I've got one of the Blink cameras in the garden, and that has worked pretty well, to be fair. So I was thinking just to swap the front door camera with a blink camera.
You can get a blink doorbell now, can't you? Which is rather nice.
Yeah.
Not that expensive either.
Yeah. So maybe I'll look at that route, but that's Amazon. But there's nothing to say Amazon won't won't change the service. Yeah. It's like you said, it's a mixture. The cost of it is part of it, but over X amount of years, that's not too bad. It's the inconvenience of having to go up ladder, swap the camera, get the routines set up again, and install the apps and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'll have a look at the blink doorbell, because that's where it is. It looks down at the front door, so actually that might not be a bad option. I did think about
it's £50 basically for blink doorbell, which is probably the same as a year subscription, isn't it?
Yeah.
Service. No, it's probably not quite that much, but
yeah. I'm loath to pay Arlo anything either, because it's just not a nice practice that they've done there, and so I don't know how much it is, but I remember, I think I actually have to check, because it was quite expensive when I looked at it last time. But I don't want to pay another monthly subscription fee. It's you buy the device and then that should be it, really. I think.
Yeah.
I'm sick of being charged everything. I mean, it's not just smart home providers. It's BMW. We talked about it last year. BMW with heated seats, and you pay a monthly subscription. It's just things are getting out of hand with these monthly subscriptions, and I don't want to pay anymore. I actually don't mind so much the upfront cost, is because you know what you're paying for. But these monthly subscriptions, they all add up, and I've already got enough. I've got Amazon and Netflix and Disney Plus and all these things, Spotify. So, well, listeners will be glad to know we're not planning to increase our prices for the show anyway for this year.
Yeah, well, we could probably do a 20% increase in cost, couldn't we? Nobody really noticed.
Yeah. So anyway, Arlo have got quite a bit of bad press, and I suppose it'll die. They just must think, oh well, we'll just bite the bullet, and as new people come and buy their stuff who weren't aware of the free option, it won't be an issue. Really, it's just the existing users that it upsets. But a lot of these companies don't seem to mind too much upsetting existing users. It's all about grabbing new ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
A bit like Netflix cancelling shows. They're not too bothered about existing subscribers. It's always about getting new subscribers. Anyway, so I'll report back when I find out any more, but I think that's my next thing is to look at one of the blink. But I've got till April, I suppose. But I have got one. I don't think the one in the conservatory that I've got. I might just angle the blink in the garden in the right location. So I just go with that one. But we shall see. Anyway, we'll find out. But it's just another one of those things, isn't it? Anything you unless you're paying for it already as a monthly subscription, they could take it. But even if you're paying for it, they can certainly they could stop your devices being supported. It's nothing to say that you pay the monthly. In fact, they actually mentioned that you can pay the monthly subscription, but because it's an end of life device, the features might get removed at some point anyway. But it's definitely not a technical problem. That it's just it's a decision. But like you said, it's probably more about hosting. Talking of hosting as well, we talked about Rackspace having some issues. December, wasn't it? Beginning of December, where a lot of their on-prem mail services that customers subscribe to went down. Well, it turns out that it was a couple of 0-day vulnerabilities in Exchange that was the cause of the issue, and I think they patched them now, but it was an issue with remote access via OWA. So all their systems are back up now, I think, but they were mainly switched to Microsoft 365 anyway. It just shows you though that maintaining these systems is hard work, even for a big company like Rackspace.
Yeah, indeed, it's challenging. Everybody seems to have their problems at some point, but yeah, it's you think they'd get that right.
Yeah. Now we didn't have any builds, so we haven't got any build news. So hopefully we'll get some builds coming soon. Maybe even we'll get one this week, or if certainly next week. We mentioned that CES is coming up. Starts, I think, starts this week on the 5th of January, doesn't it? Just a few bits and pieces of her. I think there's the 13th gen Intel processors. I don't know if you've seen anything on those.
I hadn't yet. Yeah, no, I must admit, I've not seen any of the news out of CES yet today.
Yeah, I think Intel announced 13th gen processors with a 24-core laptop CPU, which will be nice and powerful. I don't know what devices we'll get to see those in. Maybe the Surface Laptop Studio 2nd gen or something like that. Although Microsoft always jump on the latest one. They sometimes go one behind, don't they? So we'll have to see. The on the Windows blog, they did have some info on that processors, on those 13th gen processors. I think there's some new gaming laptops coming from Alienware and Dell using these processors, and the NVIDIA announced a new laptop processor as well, the GeForce RTX 40. So maybe that would be something that we would see in a Surface. But I don't think we're not going to see any Microsoft announcements, as in Surface or even Windows. I mean, like I said earlier, Vista was launched at CES, and they launched which public beta did they release while we were all there? I can't remember. Was it Windows 7? It will have been one.
Oh, yeah, I think it was 7, wasn't it?
Yeah. Where all the bloggers were there and couldn't get the download it. Yeah, so I don't expect any big Microsoft announcements. I did see Acer had a press conference, and I think they had some Swift Goes with OLED displays and that kind of thing. Some nice looking small laptops and some gaming laptops as well, with the 13th gen processor and these new CPUs. So I imagine they'll be quite expensive, those, if they're running these new processors. But these for gaming laptops, they look actually pretty good. But we'll see if we get any other announcements later this week, which we can talk about. We used to get car announcements. I don't know whether you've seen any EV announcements from CES.
Well, there is supposed to be a couple coming from CES on General Motors was supposed to be talking about something, and Ford had a couple of things they were talking about, and even Hyundai was supposed to be making some announcements, but I've not seen anything yet, so I have to wait and see.
Yeah. In fact, one of my sort of tasks for this year is both mine and my wife's car is. I think my wife's is due this year, and I think mine is the year after. But it's worth planning. Is we're going to look at vehicles, and a bit like Richard's doing, just done. We're going to have to sort of add up which is the which route that we go down. Do we go electric or? And I certainly think for my wife, who does 10, 20 miles a day, electric, a small range electric vehicle seems a good option.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Yeah, so it's just a case of starting to get some prices in and weigh up the options. But I definitely think that there'll be a few things like that. Which traditionally she's always had Ford Fiestas, but I think this time we'll get the sort of a renewal price from Ford, but then we'll look at the Hyundais and MGs, and there's a lot of options.
The MG4 that Richard quite liked, but couldn't get past the height side of things. It would possibly suit her down to the ground. It's a really nice car. Yeah,
and so we don't need a big range one either. So for so that you could, and she doesn't want a big SUV. She's quite happy with a smaller car. So I think those MGs actually look pretty good.
Yeah, they've definitely got a lot going for them, and you can choose different range levels of them as well. They've only got the long range at the moment. They are doing the shorter range one as well. Which is good. I mean, for a lot of people, short range works fine. I mean, if you're only doing 20-30 miles a day, then you could do a week's journey on a 150-mile range car. So and it'll charge up pretty darn quick as well. I mean, that's the other great thing with smaller batteries; they charge up quick. So you've got that option. It's not a bad way of going. It's just if you want to do longer journeys, then it can be a problem. But
yeah, and then that would be the case where for me, I do longer journeys. So I'll look at a larger range one or whatever, or a petrol one even, so that we've always got both options anyway. If we have to go somewhere long range, then we use the other one. So, which is I think it's the kind of thing you looked at, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, so there were lots of stories about over Christmas about people queuing up for chargers and having problems getting charged, which I didn't quite understand, because a lot of these cars were Teslas with long range batteries, which were doing journeys shorter than 150 miles, which seems I couldn't quite figure out why they were charging, because even if they just plugged in on a 3-pin plug at the other end, they'd probably get enough charge to get back. I mean, I did a couple of 100-mile round trip on over Christmas to pick my mum up and drop her back. Didn't bother charging en route. I just charged at home. I got back with about 30 miles range left, but that was fine at that time, and it wasn't an issue, right? Because I knew from the management side of things how much time I got, and even if I'd had to go on a detour. I mean, you don't really tend to get more than 30-mile detours, so I'd probably been all right. And there were charges all I had if I needed them. And there were several charges I could have used. It's just if you aim for the services, as we've mentioned before, they tend to not have enough charges because they're in the wrong places to have power supplies. Whereas if you go to other places, there's a lot more charges. The people I really am impressed with at the moment is the multi-fuel group, MFG garages, because they're popping up everywhere with proper groups of chargers with covers over the top of them. They even have if you're a disabled driver and you need to charge, they've got a phone number, you can just phone up and the people will pop out from the services, because every one of these is actually built on a standard garage with a cafe and all the normal stuff a normal garage has and shop. And they'll pop out and help you as well. So yeah, I'm really impressed with what they're doing at the moment, even if it does cost a little bit. I wonder when we're going to see energy prices start to come down now that energy has actually started. The price of gas has dropped significantly in the last few months.
It's funny that, isn't it? They're quick to go up, but not so quick to go down.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I think. And we'll see. The other thing to factor is the availability. But I was having a look at some vehicles, and some actually got availability now. And actually, we know someone who works for a company that's part of the same group as Plug Me In. So can supposed to get priority installations as well. So that might not be an issue as well. So that would. That would make sense for us. So I'll report back in the next few weeks when we start looking at it. But I've already told wife, I said Gary's not going to let us get away with not looking at these properly.
I'll act as a consultant. That's fine.
yeah, that's it. Now, I did have a listen to last year's show for our predictions. We really didn't do any because Richard wasn't available. Unfortunately, Richard's not available this week. But maybe we should do some proper ones for next week. But we have got some things. But I did have a listen to what the show actually. And Gary, you said you were actually going to spend more time with Raspberry Pi setting up sensors. That was your main thing. So I think you actually did get some sensors set up over the course of the year.
I did, yeah. I'm not using them now because I've kind of gone fully onto Zigbee now, which was something I wouldn't have predicted last year. But just because Zigbee's got so cheap over the last few years, because I guess Matter coming along and will replace Zigbee over time. But compared to what it was a few years ago, when if you wanted to buy, I mean, I bought quite a lot of Zigbee sockets, plugins. Sockets that before Christmas, and I looked at the price that they were when I last bought some 2 years ago, and they were sort of like one socket would cost me £40, and and this year I've got 4 for the same price. And so it's crazy how much that's come down. So that's actually now a much better financial option than say something like Lightwave is. So yeah, that's the way I've gone basically for now. But we will see if that's still the best way to go in the future. But
yeah,
Atom may come in and take over.
Yeah,
I'm
and then
starting
I
to see
suppose
some
it's the
Atom
price of them.
prices appear. But yeah.
Yeah, you just wait for that sort of critical mass, aren't you, where for prices to drop for those when it really pushes the Zigbee out.
Or the manufacturers stop making Zigbee, which could happen.
Yeah. Or want to charge you an extra subscription model to use them.
To use it.
Yeah. I did notice a new feature. It's relatively new on the Hue. I was changing some of my configs over Christmas, and they've always had the scenes, but they were always in I think they were kind of extras, weren't they? Or they were called something, and it kind of took you to a browser. And I never really got on with that well with them as an extra, but they've actually built them into the main apps. I don't know when this was added in, but now you've got the gallery and you can pick a gallery, and there's some quite good ones on. There's one called Tyrell, which is Blade Runner, and there's one called Miami, and you've got that. There's some animation behind them, so I had some of those set up, which is quite nice. So it's subtle animation, so no one really sees the lights changing, but they subtly change. So you've got sort of purple to an orange or whatever you choose to have. Now you could do all this before, but it was kind of in a separate app. And I found sometimes once they started, you had to go to a browser to stop them. I think they were called Hue Labs, but now they're integrated. I don't know when they did this. It could have been quite a while ago, because to be honest, I just set it up and leave it. But when I was playing with it, I thought, well, I'll try some of these. So because there were all the Christmas ones as well. But yeah, so I've got those set up on there. So that's one service where I could say the Hue are expensive to buy, but they're not so far making you subscribe to anything to operate them. So I think I would get upset if they did that, because I've got quite a few Hue lights in there.
Yeah. I mean, Hue stuff is very expensive compared to.
Yeah.
I mean, Hue's basically Zigbee, so we were talking about Zigbee then Hue is Zigbee under the skin, and it's way more expensive than a lot of the other Zigbee providers are. But yeah, it's interesting to see that. I mean, these blinds I've got as Zigbee as well, so I will try and get those set up. But it's interesting.
Yeah,
how they work. Yeah.
So the other stuff that I did listen to for our prediction show, that I said that I would expect Android 12L, not Android 12, to arrive on the Duo, and I thought it would be the summer. So it wasn't quite the summer; it was autumn. But yeah, that was pretty right. I predicted there'll be no Duo 3 in 2022, which is correct, and also that we wouldn't see the Neo either. Not a difficult prediction, that, but
that wasn't a difficult prediction, was it?
Yeah. I predicted that Windows 11 would get one update and wouldn't be a fairly major update. So we did get the 2022 update, 22H2, and it probably it was there's quite a few UI changes in there, but yeah, nothing major. I did say I hope to see a new ARM-powered Surface or Surface Go, which we didn't get, which I talked about a few weeks ago. And I also said it'd be interesting to see how well the low-cost Surface goes. The education one. But I haven't really heard much about that education model.
Yeah. What's happened to that?
Yeah.
Where's it gone?
Yeah, because you can't buy it through the Microsoft store. You could only get it through education channels. I haven't heard of anybody using them. I've never seen one out in the wild, and I've never even hear anybody talking about them. So yeah, what is the situation with those? And there was Windows 10 or Windows 11. It would be, what was the mode? It wasn't S mode. It was SE, Windows 11 SE.
Yeah,
which is the education model, which I did get an image of and posted a video of it early on last year. But yeah, I've not seen much about those educational ones, have we? It's gone very quiet on that. I know that they don't really publicize it. It was just kind of a thing at the time, and then you talk to your education software or hardware provider, but Yeah, it's got very quiet on that one. Actually, Richard had COVID for the first show of last year as well, so that's a real time capsule. I think next week we'll talk about our predictions, because I want to see what Richard thinks. We'll be talking about Windows 11 23 H2, I would guess, and so we'll talk about that. One thing I did want to mention as well. Have you ever used the Bing Rewards for searching?
I have, yes.
Now, I set mine up, I don't know, a few years ago. I completely forgot about it. And a few weeks ago, I was on it, and I wonder, how much is this worth? Anyway, I had £20 worth of Amazon vouchers from Bing Rewards. So when I bought my headphones, I actually got £20 off those, because I redeemed some of my Bing Reward points for Amazon vouchers. And I think I got two £10 ones. So I think I had like 30,000 points or something like that. There's all sorts on there, so you don't have to get Amazon one. There's Xbox, Pizza Hut, and Wagamama's, and other Sainsbury's, and Tesco's also.
I must have a look, because I use Bing all the time. So I must be some rewards somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've not redeemed it for, I guess, for more than a year, you can have a significant chunk of points on there. And I think a £5 voucher is something like 7,000 points. So I had that 30,000. So I had enough for two Amazon vouchers. And but I thought it's one of those things I set up and completely forgot about. And if you haven't already, to listeners, if you haven't already done this, and you do use Bing because it's the default in Windows 11, then just set it up. It's a couple of tick boxes to set up. You don't have to put any credit card information in. It just is enabled on your Microsoft account, and every time you search, it just ticks the points up. And you're looking for that fix on how to fix your Sony your dead and tape deck, or you're trying to find out where an EV charger is, and whatever you're searching through from Bing, it'll just start racking those points up, and eventually you'll get it. So I say it took me a long while.
I've just logged in, and I've got 16,000 points.
Well, that's at least £10. Yeah, so you can get yourself a £10 voucher for whatever store of your choice is, and I should have kept mine and got for off a Ring doorbell or a Blink doorbell. But yeah, it's well worth doing. If I don't think there's that much marketing or tracking information it takes that Bing doesn't already know about you. So there's just a few tick boxes to do, and yeah, I'm surprised actually when I checked on my wife's account, we hadn't enabled it, but she uses Bing because it's the default, isn't it? So and not just that, it's good. It's more than good enough. I in a lot of cases I prefer the search results from Bing than I do from a Google search. So yeah, so if you're just go to Bing. I think it's not called Bing Rewards now, it's Microsoft Rewards. And yeah, just every time you search, it racks up the points, and get yourself a voucher. When you forget about it in a year's time, get yourself a £10 voucher.
Which I've just have.
So there you go. There's a tip for the year then. So have a £10 voucher on the podcast.
That's very good. Thank you very much, Elaine.
Yeah.
That's very sound financial advice.
Yes, well, that's where we meant to start. Bad news from the cameras, but good news, you can get a £10 voucher to buy something else.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of things to test. Actually, I think they're out of reach at the moment. Oh, no, this one is. So. One of the things with having the keyboards all the way over there is I have to run cables around. So I've run a load of audio cables around, but MIDI, they're quite chunky cables, aren't they? So I've got a wireless MIDI adapter.
Cool.
So it's USB. So it plugs into the receiver plugs into your PC. It's just like a wireless keyboard and mouse, isn't it? And there's two DIN sockets on the other end that plug into the MIDI device, and it runs on wireless. I've not tried it yet. It runs on the 2.4 gigahertz range. I'm not sure what the latency is like, and they're rechargeable as well. So you charge them up. You plug them into a PC to charge them up. So I'll find out. I'll probably test those over the weekend. So we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, it's just quite an easy, convenient way of, instead of having to run 2 MIDI cables all the way over there, I can use that, and then you can use the through to chain them all together. So. Yeah. So a lot of the newer stuff uses USB as well, but the older ones that are over there use proper DIN plugs. So yeah, I'll give that a try. I've also got a USB powered submixer as well to try, because of course all the stuff's over there now, so you've got to get them to the mixer. So if you're running stereo pairs, you've got a lot of cables to run all the way around. So if it's a submixer over there, and take one pair across as well. So I'll give that a try, but it's actually powered by USB-C, that one as well, so you don't need special adapters or whatever. It's quite a lot of stuff's coming now with USB-C, I noticed. So for especially replacing micro USB, which, because I've got another mixer over there that uses micro USB, but USB-C is a lot easier to deal with. I even got an extension lead with USB-C ports on them as well now. A mains extension lead with that's USB. So that's connected to a smart plug now, so I can control that. So I can shut the whole room down with one Alexa call.
Yeah. That's what I've still got some automation to set up in this room, because I've got the lights aren't yet automated, so I want to get that sorted out and Zigbee dimmer in and swap out the dimmer controller. But that's the nice thing about most rotary dimmers. The innards are actually interchangeable, so you can usually take a dimmer out and replace it with another dimmer. Right. you can just buy the dimmer unit, the actual dimmer unit, Zigbee, and just keep your socket. You switch how you like it, whatever sort of phase you've got on it, and just use the replacement one. So that is what I will try and do in a little while, and see if I can get that working.
Yeah.
My little project for this evening.
Yeah, another project to do. So hopefully next week Richard will be back, and we'll do our 2023 predictions. And we'll see. I'm holding out for an ARM-based Surface. We'll see about that.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that next week. So until next week, Gary, where can we find you and your video? Have you got any new videos on your channel?
That's a long story. No, I haven't yet. I'm still working on one. I've got basically years worth of video to edit, which I was hoping to do over the Christmas holiday, but other things into it.
Yeah, it's one thing. Yeah, video editing is not a quick job.
No, definitely not. And especially when you've got as much content as I've got to put together for my year in review of my laptop, my little EV. But it should be good.
Now, the other thing I am planning to do this year is some more Windows 11 how-to videos. So if anybody's got any suggestions for topics I should cover, either it's things that you want to know how to do, or you think that they would be useful for other people, you know how to do it, but they would be useful for other people, then let me know. You can email me in@thislife.com, and I'll add them to the list. So I'm going to cover some of the simple stuff, but you were surprised. Not everybody. We can take it for granted that you know how to do all these things, but just as there is other topics like fixing your tape player or whatever, going on YouTube is a great way of finding these resources. So I'll try and keep some of the basic guides. I'll do so there. So anybody got any suggestions, you can let me know. So until next week, then we shall go. I'm going to go and try and play with some wireless stuff and get multimeter out. I'll let you go and play with your lights, and hopefully Richard will be back with us for next week's show. Okay.
Bye.